Hello, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to my athlete monitoring system presentation. The project was conducted over a 6-week period. It encompassed 2 elite male athletes aged 29 and 24 years old. The aim of the project was to monitor and improve the selected athletes' training. I observed the 2 athletes across a 6-week period, ensuring they both met personal and club training goals. The 2 athletes that I have chosen to closely monitor across a 6-week period are current NRL players that will be representing their country at the conclusion of the NRL season. Both the athletes have been playing in the NRL and for their country for a number of years, and therefore this extended period of training should not dramatically damage the athlete's health and well-being. The period I've chosen to target is between the finishing of the NRL competition and the beginning of the international period. This period, I believe, is very interesting and complicated to program for, as a balance is required between rest and recovery from the long season of the NRL, while increasing their levels of strength and fitness to their pre-competition standard. The NRL club these athletes represented was unable to qualify for finals, hence they will have an extended period to prepare themselves for international duties. Initial training was light, allowing for the 2 athletes to recover from the NRL season. It should be noted that the first week of recording is not the correct date. The athletes have forgotten to submit their information to me. However, following the first week, the information collected is reliable. Training then begins to increase in volume and intensity, and the athletes are training 3 days a week. This will be the case for the rest of the duration of the monitoring project until they join the international team. Prior to the commencement of the monitoring project, I interviewed each athlete individually. The main questions asked were, what are the main areas you want to improve? How will you personally do this? And what are the key metrics you look at yourself? The main response to all these questions were overall fitness, strength and regaining pre-season status, focus on nutrition, no alcohol, wash body weight and return metrics to the beginning of season norm. The main metrics that the 2 athletes said they used as indicators are RPE, heart rate, total meters, and meters per minute. From the interview, I'm now able to better focus on the areas needed for both performance coaches and for feedback to the athletes. Athlete 1 is an outside back with the ability of playing varied positions. Athlete 2 is a lock or back rower and has the ability to change positions where needed. The system that I've chosen to use has 2 components. The first system I've incorporated is a Google Forms application. On this, I ask multiple questions that are highly important when monitoring athletes. I incorporated aspects required for coaches as well as what the athletes found important. The questions are based off a scale of 1 to 5. 1 is typically when the athlete is fatigued or under duress, and 5 is when the athlete is comfortable. The questions I asked were, how fatigued are you? How sore are your muscles? How ill are you? How was your sleep? What was your RPE? And the session duration. From the questionnaire, I obtained raw data that enabled me to track acute chronic workload ratios from the metrics recorded, such as RPE, which stands for the rate of perceived exertion, and is the scale of how hard the athlete believes the session is. Duration is the length of time which the athlete's session lasts for. Load, the calculation of the sum of RPE and duration tracked over an acute period, traditionally 3 days, and a chronic period, typically 28 days, gives you an acute chronic workload ratio. This identifies if the last few days in training are similar to the last 28 days, and therefore possibly preventing the athlete from overtraining. The information collected from the questionnaire is then automatically uploaded into a Google Sheets document. The data was then transferred into an Excel spreadsheet where I was able to use conditional formatting, pivot tables, and graphs to better highlight and analyse the information collected. Additionally, I uploaded certain GPS metrics that allows coaches and athletes to better understand the sessions undertaken. These metrics include total distance, the total meters that the athlete covers in a session, mean session meters per minute, the average meters that the athlete covers per minute for the entire session, max velocity, the maximum speed the athlete reached across the whole session, and mean heart rate, the average heart rate recorded during this session for each athlete. If a team is unable to gain significant funding, I believe this is the most cost-effective method possible. The data collected is reliable and valid. The information gained is identical to the information other athlete optimization systems would collect. The only variation is the ease of visualization techniques. However, these systems are highly expensive, ranging from $10,000 to $90,000 per annum. To better understand and analyse the data obtained from the two athletes, the spreadsheet was broken down into 3 tabs: Wellbeing, Load Monitoring and GPS data. Overall, the monitoring system was successful in observing the variations in both internal and external factors. The system could reliably and successfully determine daily changes to the athlete's training regime. This was made easier through visualization techniques such as pivot tables and graphs, allowing me and coaches to observe the trends of multiple metrics with a click of a button. Additionally, many other features added to these graphs provided another element, such as splices on the dates and values, allowing coaches to easily view specific dates or trends. The wellbeing data had multiple questions based on a scale of 1 to 5. If the athlete was at the lower end of the scale, the more fatigued they were. The key measures used were fatigue, muscle soreness, illness, sleep quality, and injury. In order to understand the data, conditional formatting was incorporated, flagging any poor feedback given. Red highlighted poor results, yellow average, and green was good. Illness and sleep quality and injury rarely changed, and was almost always representing a green figure. I believe this was because the athletes were not competing and only conducted conditioning sessions. However, fatigue and muscle soreness fluctuated as expected. Initially, the athletes were struggling with the increased level of training as reflected by the monitoring system, in particular the wellbeing data, with scores of 2 and 3 respectively, possibly due to in-season training being substantially lower. Due to periodization, a deload week was incorporated during the 4th week of training, which resulted in improved scores in wellbeing data. Towards the end of the program, noticeable decrements in wellbeing data was observed due to shock week being implemented, which is a significantly harder week in training. Load was determined by the sum of RPE and duration. This enabled me to measure the acute and chronic loads. To gain a better understanding of the results, it was appropriate to graph the acute load, RPE and chronic load. It is well known that changes in training load greater than 10% may result in an increased risk of injury. For this reason, I implemented error bars on the chronic load, indicating if the acute load was within the 10% threshold. From the analysis tools used, depiction of the correlations between other metrics became far simpler to observe. For example, it is noticeable that from the wellbeing data, weeks athletes expressed greater soreness and fatigue correlated with weeks that the acute load was 10% greater than the chronic load. These weeks also coincided with shock week. This week in training is significantly greater to what the athlete considered normal. This was also the case for the deload week. A decreased load was represented in both well-being and load monitoring data. This suggests that both measures are successfully working in collaboration, highlighting the imperative information. When observing GPS data, the metrics observed were total distance, mean meters per minute, max velocity, and mean heart rate. The athletes requested maximum velocity and mean heart rate, while the total distance and meters per minute were metrics commonly used by the coaches. For this reason, I created a pivot table with total distance and the mean session meters per minute. It is commonly understood that when meters per minute are above 120, the session is replicating game situations, which rarely occurs within normal training. Knowing this, the key times that meters per minute was close to or greater than 120 was in shock weeks. The graph is also identified the deload week on the 22nd of September, describing the effective use of periodization used by the coaches. From the results obtained within the wellbeing data, load monitoring and GPS data, they all presented a similar trend with noticeable variations between shock week and deloading, allowing coaches to ensure training programs are successfully targeting key areas due to constant and up-to-date feedback. Across the literature, there is still yet a definitive answer for what is regarded as fit, allowing athletes to be competitive rugby league players. How far should they be able to run and in what time? This is a tough question. The best we can possibly do is provide the athlete with a training stimulus and observe their physiological response based on monitoring tools such as the one I designed. The monitoring tool was used frequently in order to ensure that the athlete's weekly training load and total meters were met. On many occasions, this resulted in changes being made to the training session. On a particular day, for example, if meters per minute needed to be increased to meet predicted values, small-sided games would be implemented to increase these values. Additionally, the monitoring tool was used significantly more during shock weeks, ensuring that the load of the session was close to or greater than 10% compared to the previous weeks. For example, this was observed in week 6 of the training program when both athletes had significantly higher scores greater than 10% of the previous week's training load. Overall, the monitoring tool was used in many disciplines in order to appropriately prescribe and predict training sessions, while also undertaking its main role of ensuring the athlete does not reach a state of overtraining in which the monitoring tool was successful in achieving. The athlete monitoring tool was successful in allowing high-performance coaches to appropriately implement targeted training sessions to improve athletic performance. However, this monitoring tool can be greatly improved. The major limitations of the monitoring tool were failure to observe more complex metrics such as acceleration zones. The format may be enhanced through adding more layers behind the data, such as data tables allowing a more complex and holistic monitoring tool. Additionally, if the monitoring tool was to be implemented on a larger scale of athletes, such as the whole team, the tool would be unable to appropriately represent significant data. In future, if I was to undertake and rebuild another monitoring tool, I'd include weekly reports and develop acute chronic workloads for metrics such as meters per minute greater than 120 and total distance. This would add another element to the monitoring tool for more measures and finer tuning when prescribing conditioning sessions. Furthermore, to make the data easier to interpret, the use of Z-scores could be implemented, allowing coaches an instant indication of the variation in training. The major positive observed from the monitoring tool is the fact no athlete was injured during the 6-week training period, and it is supported the correct development of athlete fitness. Additionally, it was capable in measuring the key metrics asked, and it was easily visible through the use of pivot charts, graphs, and other visualization techniques. Thank you for listening to my presentation.